Dear students, I welcome you all to the 10th week of measurement concept. In the functions of measurement, one of the important functions of measurement is the control. In this week, we will see a number of aspects relating to the control. We will see meaning and importance of control. We will see the process and types of control. We will see feed forward, concurrent and feedback control, and techniques of control along with the balance scorecard. We will touch upon other important aspects relating to the control in order to ensure that you get the entire concept of control in a much crystal clear way. So before we start the discussion about this function of measurement, let us see the learning outcomes for this course. I believe that at the end of this week, you all are expected to understand a number of aspects, including the meaning and importance of control. You will see the process and types of control, including the feed-forward, concurrent, and feedback control system. You will also be able to understand the different techniques of control, and finally, we will focus on the balanced scorecard. Well, just to begin with, just to make you understand what this important function of measurement is, we start our discussion with the one line that suffices the purpose of the entire function of measurement. That is, the control is the last function of measurement. This sentence makes us understand the logic why we call it as the last and the final functions of measurement, because controlling function is unnecessary. It will be of no use to the management if other functions of measurement are performed properly. The deviations are set right by the control function. Here, one important things I want to share with you, that is regarding the attitude. This is regarding the attitude of the management. Attitude says that attack every problem with enthusiasm as if your survival depends upon it. In the light of this quote, we will now see that how important the function of measurement is in the form of control mechanism. In our everyday life also, we have a mechanism by means of which we go ahead in our life. In our lives, we have to take plenty of decisions. In our life, we make a lot of planning. We organize, we lead. But at the end of the day, one important thing that is to be understood is the control. I want to tell you that the most important function of the measurement is the control, or is to control. The issue of orders and instructions to the subordinates does not ensure that the work will be accomplished. The performance is to be checked continuously so that the differences in the performance are removed before any damage takes place in organizational setup. Every manager has to exercise control irrespective of the level of his authority. Controlling involves setting standards of performance, comparing performance of the subordinates against these standards, and taking corrective actions. Why these corrective actions are taken? Just to ensure that the activities are carried out according to the plans. That is what is the genesis of the control function of management. The word control has been defined differently by different experts of the field of management. To quote a few, we find the name of Henry Fayol on the top. Henry Fayol has defined control in very simplified language. He says that control consists in verifying whether everything occurs in the conformity with the plan adopted, the instructions issued, and the principles established. Which means that he is referring here to the conformity with the plan adopted and the standards or the instructions issued, just for the sake of variations. Another expert, Kuntz and O'Donnell, he says, controlling implies measurement of accomplishment. Controlling implies accomplishment of implies measurement of accomplishment or performance against the standard and the correction of deviation to assure attainment of objectives according to the plan. There are several other experts of this field who have defined the control in their words. Controlling envisages a system which pinpoints reasons, has been said by Ernest Dale. Management control seeks to compel events to conform to plans is the definition given by Billy E. Goetz. J.K. Rawson, another name in the field of management, says control is the presence in the business of that force which guides it to predetermined values. Controlling is determining what is being accomplished according to George Terry. And control, if we make it in simple language, simple words, control provides a way to check actual results against expected results. An effective control system ensures that activities that lead to the attainment of the organization's goals are completed. Action can be taken to correct the situation if the results are too far from the expected outcomes. We all now can say that the control is the management function that provides information about the degree to which goals and objectives are being accomplished. Management engages in controlling by monitoring activities like taking corrective actions whenever the goals are not being met. This is what we can call is the basic philosophy of the control. And now we can say one thing in the light of this conceptual discussion about the control mechanism, control process, that controlling is a function of management. As a function of management is considered in a much wider way. Its coverage becomes quite wider. It is a process of monitoring performance and taking actions to ensure desired results. It sees to it that right things happen in the right way and at the right time. Well, it ensures that the overall directions of individuals and the groups are consistent with short and long-term range plans of the organization. The organizations make different kinds of plans for the purpose of its development. Control helps to ensure the objectives and the accomplishments are consistent with one another throughout an organization. That is why control helps to maintain compliance with essential organizational rules and policies. The process of measuring and correcting activities such as plan, organization, personnel, etc. of an organization is called control. It can be considered as the activity for knowing and correcting important activities of the business. You can think about the control key in the keyboard, how important this key is. Similarly, the control in organization determines what is being tackled by evaluating the performance. And if there is any revision, by applying corrective measures so that the activities take place according to the plans. No wrong results come into picture. Things happen as per the standard norms of the organization. So, when we want to ensure that things happen as per the standard norms of the organization, it means that organization is not going into a wrong direction. The purpose of planning is being fulfilled. After having a look at the conceptual approach of the control process, we'll throw some light on almost all the aspects of control so that you understand the meaning of the term control in its proper spirit, and you could exercise it in your lives whenever it is required. When we talk about the nature of the controlling process, we find one thing here that tells us a big meaning of this control. It is very important to note that when other fundamental functions of management are performed perfectly, controlling is still inevitable, for it is used to further effect some improvements. Controlling means big savings of money in operation. We all know that planning is related to controlling. Failure of planning would mean failure in controlling, and success in planning means success of controlling. Why? There is reason. Because the controlling alerts the managers to potentially critical problems. Top level management, middle and the lower level management, both. They're guided. They are alerted. Top level management is alerted when goals are not met. Similarly, the middle level management is also alerted, a caution is given to them when the objectives are not being met. In such kind of situations, wherein we find, because we know very well one thing, that before fire there is smoke. Control mechanism is that mechanism by means of which we keep things alert. And we make corrections also. Corrections are important amendments in the wrong policies of the management. If process of control is in place, managers will gain. They can use a number of things to check and correct the situation. They can prevent the crisis. They can think about the standardized outputs. And also, they can appraise employees' performance. Of course, the plans can be updated as per the requirements of the organization because of the flexible attitude of the organization towards the attainment of goals. As the rigidity results into sometimes, not always, failure of the system. And it is the control mechanism by means which the managers can protect the assets of the organization. So one thing that we have found from this discussion is that the controlling is a wonderful exercise because it means big savings of money in operation. No other function does it, of course. So, the concept of controlling involves in the process of an assessment of an organization's progress. We can say that with proper control, an organization can achieve its organizational goals. In controlling, managers monitor how a plan is implemented. If things do not go according to the plan, they make necessary corrections. This helps in rectifying deviations from the original plan. This is why controlling is one of the management's most important goal-oriented function, I tell you. Controlling facilitates the comparisons of the actual performance with the organization's standards performance. Keep an eye on reading to know more about the concept of controlling. This way, you will come to know about the objectives of controlling from our discussion. This control is done through a model. A cursory glance on this model of control, we find 4 things which are very important, and these all 4 will be discussed at length later. The most important thing out of this model that comes up is the establishing the standards, monitoring the organizational behavior and results which are going on, comparing actual behaviors and the results against the standards. Of course, you have to evaluate and take action. Evaluate and take action for correction purposes. Now, we look at the process in the light of this model of control, wherein we see that from establishing standards to the feedback and learning, we observe one thing, that the management is a big process. Management is a process where we not only establish or set the standards, we measure the performance, we compare performance with the standards, we analyze deviations, we take corrective actions, follow up and monitoring is also one of the parts, and of course, at the end, it is feedback and learning through this process. Now, we will throw more light on this process of control. A few of them which are very important, which have come out of the model, consists of establishing standards. I want to tell you here about the standards, that the standards are desired levels of performance. The standards are desired level of performance, and the standards constitute the foundation of the process. Constitute the foundation of the process of control. These standards serve as the criteria against which the performance is evaluated. So, before any action is initiated, the basic requisite of this process is to set a tune, set a standard, because that is only which will be measured, which will be compared, which will be, and where the corrections will be made if required. Second important thing about the control process is about the quantity and quality. Here we talk about the measuring performance against the established standards. As I said, two things are very important: quantity and quality. Of course, the time and cost is important. By quantity and quality, we mean simply quality of output. That is, what is produced compared to what should be produced. It is parallel to effectiveness. And when it comes to quantity, of course, we find out the amount or number of output. It is parallel to efficiency. If we look at the time part, we find one thing here. That is regarding the formulating the timetable. Organizations should think of formulating a timetable for achieving certain goals at a certain time, at a certain date. Because of it is about the deadlines. Because if there are no deadlines, then the process of production will not complete. A deadline is to be fixed. Time duration is to be fixed. So that the proper assessment could be made, proper comparison could be made of the actual performance with the expected performance. Cost is very important part here. We have to see in this process part, in this control process, we see whether the cost went over the budget or not. Very important consideration. The cost of production can go up due to any reason. For example, the cost may went over the budget because of the increased prices in raw material. For example, the cost may go up because of the idle time of man and machine, maybe because of the power failure, maybe because of the machinery was broke down, maybe a labor was not performing properly. It is what it can be done. It can be checked and detected easily because of the control mechanism. Friends, the control makes the comparisons of actual performance possible. The core of controlling process is the comparison with the predetermined and the actual. Actual performance may differ from the predetermined or the planned performance. It can be checked, and it is the core process of controlling, I tell you again. This checking the actual meets, whether the actuals meet the predetermined or the planned performance or not. It is possible through control. It is the control process. And lastly, once the comparisons are made and it is noticed that the predetermined performance differs from the actual performance, what is required? Corrections. Here lies the role of taking corrective actions when and where deviations from the standards occur in organization. In business, corrections and fine-tunings are always required as and when, depending upon the need of the organization. So, control is that process wherein we set the standards, we measure the performance against the established standards, we make a comparison of the actual performance with the predetermined performance or the planned performance, just to ensure that there are no deviations in the performance. And of course, finally, taking the corrective steps. Whenever it is required. Wherever it is required, it should be done. Friends, now, after having a detailed look at the process of control, now we throw a cursory glance on the requirements of the effective control system. This effective control system, the points that I am sharing with you are to a very large extent, these are self-explanatory in nature. What is required in organization to make the process of control effective, efficient, and meaningful? Let me throw some light on these aspects. Feedback, objectives, suitability, prompt reporting, pointing out exceptions, flexible, economy, indelible, suggest remedial action, and finally motivation. These are the things which are required in every organization. If we want organization to be successful, meaningful, and goal-oriented, all organizations are established for long-term purposes. The motive of the organization is not to take up business for a very small duration. A business is a perpetual succession. A business is passed from generation to generation. The new generations enjoy the goodwill of the past of these businesses when their forefathers established the same business. Like you can see, several names are there which started in 1910 or 11 or 20, likewise people claim it to be. Showing the public that it is not a new venture. This business is in practice for the long time and we are famous for the quality of our product. So, in the last part of this session, we are going to have a look at the characteristics of the control. The function of control is to keep work moving. The function of the control is to keep work moving on schedule as planned towards the established objectives and the goals. Control should meet the certain characteristics. What these characteristics are? I want to throw some light on these characteristics so that you could understand the entire concept of the control in a more simplified way. First of all, the first basic characteristic of the control is that it is attuned to the activity. It is attuned to the activity means that the control should reflect need of the people using them. And deviations must be identified quickly. What is the use of checking the process of parts after they broke down? It should be done. Apart from this, management should avoid historical and the use of forecast and other forward-looking devices because it must be forward-looking and it must be strategically oriented too, which means that the selection should be made of the crucial points at which the control is used, control is exercised, control is applied. The process should be flexible, as mentioned earlier also, because the flexibility permits unexpected changes or situations. The change is a continuous process in every organization. Change requires flexibility, no rigidity, to grow faster. And of course, a very important point regarding the control is that it should be economical too, because the cost of controlling should not exceed the benefits of it. Otherwise, what is the use of control when more expenditure is being incurred on not controlling? So controlling is becoming an expensive affair. That's why it should be economical. It should not be expensive affair. Because in that case, the cost of controlling should not exceed the benefits. Here the management has to make the cost benefit analysis. The cost benefit analysis should be done in case of every business activity. So is in case of the control too. And finally, it should be easy to understand. People should understand its purpose easily. Well, friends, this was a brief discussion about few important aspects of control, which is very important mechanism. I want to remind you that our discussion today confined to the introduction of the subject, followed by its definitions and conceptual clarity we have had in this discussion, and we have seen the nature, control model, control process, and also the requirements of effective control system, and we ended this discussion of this session with the characteristics of the control. Thank you very much.